This film follows the story of a chef and an epidemiologist who fall in love during a pandemic that causes people to lose their senses one by one. Just when the two began to really understand each other, they and the rest of the world lose their precious senses. Hey guys, today I am going to explain a romance drama sci-fi film released in 2011 called Perfect Sense. At the beginning of the film, we see Michael, a chef who, after having a one-night stand with a woman, asks her to leave as he can't sleep with another person in bed. On the other hand, we see Susan, an epidemiologist who goes for a walk with her sister. Susan is sad and angry as she recently broke up with her boyfriend. When she calms down, she decides to get back to work and move on. When she arrives at work, her colleague named Steven tells her to come with them to investigate a patient at a hospital. The patient's wife says that when she talked to her husband on phone, her husband suddenly burst into tears and got emotional. He further said that he found his life meaningless and that he could not smell anything. Susan talks to the patient and finds that the case has nothing to do with her profession. But Stephen informs her that there are similar cases around Europe who show the same symptoms in 24 hours. Stephen believes that they are all infected, but he cannot determine how the infection spread as the patients have nothing in common. Meanwhile, Michael is working at the restaurant where he is preparing multiple dishes simultaneously. He has a great sense of smell, because of which he can tell whether a fish is fresh or not just by smelling it. After he is done, he goes out to take some rest. At that moment, Susan is also smoking in her apartment, which is next to Michael's restaurant. Michael asks Susan if he can have a spare cigarette. He then starts flirting with Susan, but she shows no interest in him and closes the window. Days pass by, and Susan and her team are still working on the strange disease. They conclude that it is not contagious, but still it is spreading somehow, and they don't know why. As more days pass by, more and more people get infected by the disease. The infected become emotional over things. They think of all the people that they have hurt and feel guilty about it. Over time, they begin to lose their sense of smell. Days pass by, and Susan and her team continue working all day to find a cure for the mysterious syndrome. Even though the disease is not contagious, people wear masks all the time as it gives them hope that they won't get infected. Michael's restaurant, which once used to be crowded with people, has hardly any customers now, as many people lost their sense of smell. While smoking outside, Michael sees Susan returning home. He invites her to the restaurant and cooks a dish for her. Susan is impressed by his dish and compliments him for his cooking talent. When Michael brings some sweets for Susan, she suddenly starts crying. Susan says that she misses her father and can't stop thinking about him. Michael tries to comfort her, but Susan can't stop herself from thinking about her father. So Michael walks her home. Since Susan is still grieving, Michael decides to stay with her for the night. While consoling Susan, Michael also gets emotional and begins to shed tears. The next morning, Michael wakes up and goes to check on Susan. She reveals that she lost her sense of smell. Michael drinks some tea and realizes that he too has lost his sense of smell. Susan goes to work and continues working to find a cure. Meanwhile, Michael and the other chefs decide to add more spices and flavors to their dishes to stimulate the taste. Smell and memory are connected in the brain. Without the smell, people will begin to forget many memories, like your grandmother's apron, which reminded you of cinnamon, the smell of diesel oil while crossing the ferry, and so on. Without the smell, an ocean of the past will disappear. One morning, Michael goes to meet Susan and asks her out. Susan hesitates at first, but later decides to go for a walk with him. The two talk about their lives and feel a strange attraction to each other. After talking for a while, they return to Susan's apartment and start mating. Even though Michael usually can't sleep with someone in bed, he feels different for Susan and is willing to try. But Susan asks Michael to leave, saying that she wants to be alone. So Michael gives her his card in case she wants to meet him again. One day, Susan tells her sister about Michael. Her sister suggests her to give Michael a chance, but Susan says that she doesn't want to go through the cycle of love and break up again. As more people get infected by the mysterious virus, people begin to come up with various theories. Some people believe that it is the start of an ecological apocalypse, while some even believe that the fundamentalists behind this are trying to eradicate the non-believers. One day, Stephen starts acting strangely and expresses mixed emotions, as he too is infected with the virus. While leaving for home, Susan too begins to show the same symptoms. At the restaurant, Michael also starts acting strangely. Because of this strange virus, people gradually become very hungry. They start eating anything they could get their hands on, like flowers, raw fish, lab animals, raw meat, and even lipsticks. When people regain control, they are shocked and feel disgusted. After eating whatever they could, the people begin to lose their sense of taste. When Michael returns home, he finds Susan waiting for him. The two hug and try to comfort each other. Michael and Susan believe that in the upcoming days, everyone may begin to lose their other senses as well. So the two decide to embrace their remaining senses and spend time together rather than being alone. The next morning, Susan and Michael agree that they should move on in life just like the rest of the world and forget about the loss of smell and taste. Later, Michael goes to work. His boss tells him that there is no point in opening the restaurant anymore, but Michael convinces his boss by saying that they should not give up. Instead, they will work hard and try to come up with new recipes for the people who lost their taste. So he starts experimenting and tries to find new recipes that the people may taste. Weeks pass by and people get used to their loss of taste. They eventually resume going to the restaurants not because they want to try a new dish, but because they want to spend time with others and share memories together. With each passing day, Michael and Susan's relationship grows stronger and they start spending more time together. One night, Susan shares about her ovary problems, because of which she cannot have children. Michael also shares that he once had a girlfriend who had cancer. Instead of looking after her, he abandoned her and let her die alone. At first, he felt guilty, but as time passed by, his guilt began to fade and now he doesn't know what he feels anymore. The two console each other and try to pretend that they are going to be fine. But one day, a researcher from Bangkok reveals that the people there are becoming violent and show signs of anger, rage, and hate. Once they calm down, they go deaf permanently. Before Susan and her team could do anything, the syndrome spreads across the world, turning the whole world into chaos. After the people come to their senses, they realize that they have lost their sense of hearing. As the world is on the brink of destruction, Michael and Susan try to make each other smile and laugh while they still can. One day, the restaurant where Michael works is shut down by the officials who order them to become the food supply for the quarantine zones. Since Susan's apartment is in the quarantine zone, Michael invites her to move in with him. But soon after moving in, Michael becomes aggressive and starts saying inappropriate things to Susan. He starts throwing things and destroys everything in the house. Susan gets scared and immediately leaves Michael's house. As she drives off to work, people on the streets scream for help, but Susan can't do anything but watch them helplessly. Meanwhile, Michael gets back to his senses and realizes that he can't hear anything anymore. He calls Susan and apologizes to her, but Susan doesn't want to talk to him. Suddenly, she becomes angry and destroys her office. When she calms down, she also loses her sense of hearing. As the world plunges into chaos, Some people decide to steal whatever they can get their hands on, whereas some people still haven't given up hope and believe that the world will heal itself and people will find a way to move on. Michael and the others reopen the restaurant. Susan, on the other hand, returns to her apartment and decide to forget about Michael. Over time, people get used to the loss of hearing and begin communicating with each other using signs, hand gestures, and reading lips. People realize that sooner or later they may lose their other senses as well, so they prepare themselves for the worst and practice walking with their eyes blindfolded. Some read books and enjoy those little things they may never be able to experience again. But just when people thought that they have prepared themselves for the worst, the temperature gradually starts dropping across the world. The Ice Age, which was once thought to be over, begins reoccurring again. One morning, Michael wakes up feeling overwhelmed with love and happiness. Everyone begins to smile and hug each other with happiness. They forgive each other and begin to enjoy life no matter how harsh it is. Susan is overwhelmed by her emotions as well and goes straight to meet Michael. Michael is also on his way to see Susan. The two find each other and are happy to see each other again. But just as they embrace each other, everyone across the world becomes permanently blind. And so this was the story of Perfect Sense. Comment down what you think and do subscribe for more interesting movies. See you in the